What's good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Erik Turner and Erik. Laughing already. It is a Wednesday. We are recording here on a Wednesday, but the Bills, as has been tradition for about the last year or so, a flurry of moves the night before the recording of the show, the day of the recording of this show. So we have been balancing day job things and life and film stuff and notes and metrics to bring this episode to the people, this Bills free agency recap on Joey Bosa, on Larry Ogunjobi, and some more additions. Erik, how you feeling? How's it going? How's life?
I want to take a breath and sigh and take a moment, but I feel like even during this recording, Bean he's gonna get us. He's gonna sign someone else. But yeah, it's an action-packed episode, very in-depth. We got a lot of guys to cover. We're gonna recap a bunch of the signings and transactions already, primarily the ones that have happened over the last couple of days. Because luckily for us, we actually got ahead of the curve when we were talking, wide receiver Josh Palmer. We're talking Michael Hoyt. So we did cover those guys before, so we're a little ahead, but yeah, we're still behind. And like I said, I think Bean's still gonna hit us with some more. So without further ado, man, we gotta dive right into this episode.
It was so funny to be ahead a couple days ago, and then just when like 12 hours later, it was like, no, you're super behind now. Here's all these moves. Yeah, but exciting times, fun times. I was live on Disguised Coverage last night, like 20 minutes in when the Bosa news dropped. I thought people in the chat were trolling and just making jokes, but it was true. Erik,
that's always your luck too, right? That's always your luck. Von Miller, right?
And with Kendall,
that's so cool.
Kendall and I, so obviously Kendall was my guest last night. We were live. The Bosa news dropped. When Von signed, Disguised Coverage was still on Wednesdays at 7, and the Von news dropped at like 6:49. Awesome. And it was just pure scramble. So yeah, the odds of it happening again. And we were in the middle of talking about Von Miller and splash signings and like what that means.
Not gonna happen. And then there's one.
And then bang, everybody was like, they just signed Joey Bosa for $12.6 million up to 15. And I was like, oh,
it was very, very entertaining, Anthony. It was very entertaining.
I'm glad. It was hectic for me. I was scrambling. And then I just wanted to like end the stream and go watch tape, but it's for good reason, good times. The Buffalo Bills, who had moved on from Von Miller earlier in the week, released him, signed Joey Bosa, who had been released by the Chargers, a player with a significant amount of talent, one of the highest paid edges in football, even just back to as a couple years ago. Even his most recent contract before coming to the Bills was a 2-year, $40 million deal, so about a $20 million AAV. One of the premier edge rushers in the league and edge players for a while, but as the years have gone on, especially the last 3, significant injuries have hindered him and hampered him a bit. Even 2019 through 2021, when he was crushing it like 60 and 70 pressures and 30 and 40 stops, he was still playing through a multitude of injuries. Yeah. But he's someone who looks to come to this team on this 1-year deal, maybe trying to show he can recoup some of who he used to be, maybe sign a larger contract next offseason and see where that goes from there. And then the Bills look to try and get an edge one as a pass rusher, somebody they can incorporate into this team who has a pedigree and a proven production, even though he might not be the same player as he was in his prime several years ago.
Yeah, it was, it definitely hit me when, it happened. It was 9:45, 10 o'clock at night. I'm just about to go to sleep because I get up at 4 a.m. And then I get this and I'm just like, to my wife, I'm like, he did it again.
I got to go to the basement.
And so it's interesting. I'm lukewarm about the move. I rationally understand the move, especially if you're talking about from Von Miller to Bosa, getting younger. But, the role and the usage is going to be interesting. That's something we're going to really stress today in the film room. We assume, given his injuries and how the Bills want to kind of save him for the playoffs, that they're going to manage his reps and, manage the load like they typically do.
Like they did with Von.
Like what they did with Von. And what they typically do naturally, too, because of the rotation that they have with their D-line. But the interesting thing is for years, we're trying to get to this point of, hey, let's get those athletic, bendy edge players. And then, of course, they're starting to do that with Von, even Javon Solomon. And we're like, yeah, man. And then we're talking about this draft class and how they can go get one of those guys early on the first day or two. And then they go ahead and get Bosa, who is more of a power guy, a speed to power guy, not one that is really bendy or have that ankle flexion to kind of turn the corner. To go to that from, the smooth and fluid finesse type rusher like Von. That is what's, the really thing that stood out to me about signing them. But the other thing is, like, when you're talking Miller style versus Bosa style, like last year, just the last year alone, Von Miller's time to pressures, like in seconds was 2.3 seconds. So it was very, very quick when he registered pressures. Bosa's with 2.6. So again, has a lot to do with their style of play and how they win, but also just kind of puts it in perspective the type of players they are.
Yeah, and that also goes along with some of their get-off times as well. So Joey Bosa last year in another injury-filled season, hip injuries and hand injury and back injuries, all things that are not good.
They're keeping Kyle Trimble from Banged Up Bills very
super busy. Yeah. Good shout out to Kyle. He had a great breakdown of the injuries he suffered season by season. But even an injury-filled season last year for Bosa, 0.80 get off, which is a good time. Same as Max Crosby, same as Aiden Hutchinson, 0.01 seconds less than Jonathan Grenard, but also juxtaposing with Von's get off was 0.69. So even a little faster for Von, but again, tying into the difference in style. And, it's funny. That's right where my head went. We liked the Michael Hoyt signing. We talked about him as, as a target for this team. I wanted to pair him with someone like Dante Fowler. Like I wanted more of the slasher, give me more athleticism. Let's keep going for that. And while I'm a little more, I'm past lukewarm. I am hopefully optimistic and excited for the signing because of the combination of Groot, Hoyt, and Epinesa ahead of Bosa and what that could mean for him. But I definitely was kind of like, oh, well, this is, I like Bosa. This is also a further move away from the dippy, bendy athletic edge. And we're kind of back where we started almost a little bit. But the type of proven productivity he has is a really nice thing to see. But what's also interesting, and Erik, you mentioned it, kind of how they can play him, usage, rotation, all that stuff, that factors into his snap rate, and not just his snap rate overall, but the snaps by down and how he's being used.
Yeah, they're going to have to be intentional with Bosa. Again, they want to prolong, him for the season, have him late in the year so that he can make a difference and be that closer that they really wanted in Von Miller. So let's look at some of his snaps by down according to True Media. So total snaps last year, according to True Media, was 475. And you can see the Chargers were very intentional with how they used him. So 157 of those 475 snaps were on first down, 151 were on second down, 150 overall were on third down, and then 17 on fourth down. So you can tell that it was actually quite balanced. I honestly assumed that it would be heavy third down. Now, obviously, that's going to be skewed a little bit when we're talking actually, rushing the passer and pass rush snaps. 125 on third down, 107 on second down, and 82 on first down. But either way, you can see when you're talking run versus pass, he's got 327 pass rush snaps to 148 run snaps. So again, while he may be all right and decent versus the run, I think even the Chargers realize that, hey, we need to save him for those important downs. And obviously those downs when they need to rush the passer.
Yeah. And especially with last season, the injuries that he had, again, hand, hip, back, all of those matter significantly to an edge. Like your back and your hip are significantly hindering your lower body and the type of movement and fluidity that you have. And again, he's not the most, bendy fluid type of guy. So if you've got tightness or pain in your hip or your lower back, that's going to restrict you further. And then the hand being banged up, as a guy who's a power guy and who likes to, win that first touch and get that contact and use his hands, it makes sense that they would try to even, kind of lean more towards, okay, let's strategically kind of use him, strategically kind of deploy him. And I think that, again, like to our conversation a minute ago, like makes sense with what the Bills have, especially when you have an edge grouping with such a strong run defender in Greg Rousseau. Someone like Michael Hoyt, who plays with violence and physicality off the edge. Someone like AJ Epinesa, who improved his game as a run defender and had actually a pretty productive year in terms of stops and stop percentage against the run. You've got those three. It lets Bosa, again, I hate to say this, but we mentioned earlier, like essentially kind of going into the Von Miller role a little bit more. Like you're using him more as that closer. You're trying to use him more with more specificity on those known passing downs, those known passing situations, letting him hunt. It leans into more of what he is right now, but also lessens the opportunity for him to get banged up and keeps him kind of suited to more of what his strength is at this point.
Right. And to kind of wrap up the split segment, in comparison, when we're talking by down, snaps by down, Von Miller last year, first down, 84 snaps, to Bosa's 157 overall. Second down, 70 snaps for Miller, 151 for Bosa, 97 on third down for Miller, 150. So he's damn near doubling him up in many ways. And so that's partly what you're paying for when you're talking the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. And honestly, it's one of those things that you had to let Miller go, unfortunately, but I do think that when it comes to like stopping the run, again, you nailed the injuries, right? I think that's partly why he didn't play the run as well as I thought he could or remembered of him, because when I go to my notes and kind of wrap up, the run defense side of Joey Bosa's game, what I said was that he showcases tactical precision with lateral quickness, effective hand usage, and methodical block shedding. He's not a guy that's just going to stack and shed and blow up the line of scrimmage or reset the line of scrimmage. He's going to be precise with his movements, his actions. They're very calculated. But I also saw him, and again, maybe this is injuries, maybe it's just, how they used him in certain contexts or situations. But I didn't see the same amount of tenacity and chase down ability and ability to track the ball. Those were some of the negatives when it came to his run defense. He's not bad per se, but the way they used him last year, again, specifically last year, injuries and all, it made me feel and think like, okay, maybe he's not going to be a primary early down run defender, but when he is in there, are they going to do some things on his alignment, whether it's, right versus left side alignment, according to the strength of the formation? Will they keep him to the weak side of the formation, keep Groot or whoever is the backup run defender with that second pairing? Do they put those guys at the point of attack to the tight end side and then keep Bosa to the weak side, the open side, so that he can work that shorter edge versus the run?
Yeah, I think that's a fair schematic question to ask. And, again, when he has been, fully healthy and raring to go, his second year in the league, 2017, 75 pressures, 41 stops. 2019 through 2021, arguably his best stretch. 2019, 72 pressures, 49 stops. 2020, 61 pressures, 31 stops. 2021, 69 pressures, 31 stops again. He does play the run. He plays with that tenacity, but he, to your point, one of my things in my notes I wrote for 2024, he looked like a guy who was hurt. He looked like a guy who was laboring. You could see it in that movement. And granted, you're going to feel it all the time, but when you're banging like that against the run and having to more stop, start, shed, move, especially with his style, you mentioned it, I for as physical and as powerful as a guy he is, he's very slippery with getting into guys' bodies and then just like sliding right off them and getting through. The more he's banging against, tackles and guards or tight ends or whoever, I just imagine that pain was a lot, and they were trying to save him for as many of the impactful snaps as they could. Again, not trying to make an excuse, but he just looked like a dude who was really laboring.
Right, and if we're transitioning to, rushing the passer, we have up some pressure statistics for Bosa. Again, by down, that's very important. Again, they want him for those passing downs, and you can see on third down, he had a 19.2% pressure percentage and a 16.7% pressure to sack percentage. His actual pressure percentage was 16th overall among all DNs on third down, so 19.2. And then more importantly, that havoc rate, 4%, which was 11th overall among DNs. His step, I think, again, take it with a grain of salt with the injuries and everything. I felt like it is on the downward end, like it's trending down, but it's still a very good first step. He's got that speed to power conversion. That is his go-to. He wants to transition from speed to power and then use that leg power and that leg drive and those long arms to compress the pocket. Again, back to really the roots of this regime and what they've liked that edge. But he's still got really active, violent hands, really, really good hand usage and lateral explosiveness. He's got that, like we talked about it prior. He's got this herky jerky movement. It's not fluid. Again, it's opposite of fluid. It's opposite of Von Miller. It's very herky jerky, squared off. And it can throw off, honestly, the timing and rhythm of an offensive tackle when they are about to make contact. And so I liked what he did and what he does as a rusher, though, because, most rushers are just like up the field and then they're turning the arc. They're running the hoop like you see in the combine. With him, he almost squares up has his shoulders perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, where he's squaring up the tackle, but more importantly, squaring up the quarterback in the pocket. And he does a good job of actually calculating where the quarterback is going to be in the pocket. But I think overall, his style, even at his age, with all the injuries that he's gone through, and if they manage his reps properly, I still think he actually could have a bigger year than we've seen over the last couple of years because of the Bill scheme and those tighter alignments. Because again, he's a speed to power guy, but he also has those active hands and he knows how to beat the hands.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of points that are the biggest for me. It's the hand usage and his rush angles. I feel like he is so good at getting to where the quarterback is going to be, where he is getting it to the depth of his drop, and then pairing that with, like you mentioned, putting tackles in what looks like uncomfortable positions. Like it just looks awkward because of how he rushes and, like you said, how he squares them up. I just appreciate the speed to power aspect, what he can do from a compression standpoint, but what he can also do from a slip a block standpoint around the corner or on the inside, but all of that within that professional package. And when I say professional package, I mean the tactile usage of the hands and then understanding quarterbacks drops. There are so many rushes where he gets a pressure or he gets a sack and it looks kind of unimpressive. And it's just because his angle that he takes beats the block, but it also meets the quarterback at his drop. And it's just like, you can tell he understands how to rush the quarterback. And I appreciate that within that speed to power package and him being more of a power guy that fits within the system.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because I think that is one of the major differences between Bosa and Miller, where, you saw that finesse and ability to turn the corner from Miller and quickness off the snap, but you also saw him at times run right by the quarterback spot. And I think Bosa is a different type. And guys that are speed to power, more power rushers, usually approach it this way and approach it differently than obviously finesse rushers. And so I think Bosa, that is one of the biggest differences. You're not going to see Bosa often, run by the quarterback spot in the pocket often. He's going to go right through that tackle and take the shortest line because, again, that's what he relies on as a pass rusher. So, Anthony, with that said, let's dive into some of this film. Let's start with a couple of clips of the run game. You got Bosa off the right side of the screen here. And I talked about how he's calculated and he's very precise with his movements against the run. Weak side of the formation here, you see him beat the hands of the right tackle on this zone run. Very quick. You see the lateral movement and his ability to turn that corner and set that edge and beat the edge and really reset it for his defense there to make the tackle.
Yeah, and you can kind of get a sense of the bit of that, that movement in terms of, like you mentioned, like how this one, he literally gets like perpendicular to the sideline. Like he is completely turned. He is facing the play inside, but it's just that quick hand usage and the block just slips off him. Like he lets him get in, boom, just a quick slide, resets himself, like you said, sets that edge. And then this is where also too, you see a little bit of that explosion, that ability to just go from that standing spot after he slipped the block and then boom, he just jumps like a spider monkey on Antonio Gibson and rides him down to the ground. You see it all in that. You see some precision, you see some technicality, but you also see some of the power from an explosion standpoint.
And here's another one, this time against the Bucks. There's a gap run. You see him immediately read the deuce block right here between the guard and tackle. He comes down and fits up this blocker. And you just see him. He's just under control, leads with his hands. He's not like some chaos creator like we've seen, at edge for the Bills at times. You see him just control that. And look, he even occupies too, sheds those blocks and then makes a tackle. He's just very under control. And again, maybe we see a little more helter-skelter and chaos creation as a rusher, rusher or against the run next year because he's a little healthier. But either way, last year, this is what we saw: very calculated, controlled, and then goes and makes a tackle on the running back.
Yeah, and I had this question in my notes, and you just kind of alluded to it a bit too. Like, I wonder if is it tied to a little bit more of the injury, and so he's playing a little slower, type of deal. But in general, even what you see from the previous seasons as well, I think this just ties into his precise approach to things. It is very kind of step by step. You can see him kind of ticking boxes mentally. It is a methodical approach in how he goes through and process. You can see him come down the line. Like you said, he's reading the block. He sees the next one come through. He's reading the track of the running back. What he does, again, is very professional and precise from that outside, whether it's hand uses, whether it's the processing, whether it's understanding the play and blocking schemes and quarterback drops.
Yeah, and you see a similar type play as the Patriots game right here, where he initially sets the edge. He understands it's a zone run, and with him setting this edge right here, he understands that Henry's probably going to get up inside on this run with a lead blocker, and you see him win the edge, but then realize that, hey, that cutback's coming, throw that right tackle by, and go and get King Henry.
This one made me a little excited. I was like, oh, there's some torso bend there, like how he gets popped outside a little bit by Rosengarten and then resets. You get a little bit of dip there as he gets underneath and then hits Rosengarten almost with kind of like a hump move to shed him and get back inside. I like that transition here. Again, reading the track, understanding the blocking scheme, working to get back inside. The healthier he is, the better this will look. It's nice to see, again, him have that type of effectiveness coming off the edge against the run in those spurts.
Yeah, and one thing that I was surprised to see was the fact that Bosa was actually doubled. He faced double teams more often than Khalil Mack. I did not expect that because when you watch some of those games live, it always looked like, kind of like Mack was the one that was getting double teamed more times than not. But honestly, it was Joey Bosa getting double teamed more. Let me bring up that stat real quick.
Yeah,
here it is right here.
Boom. And then we can get to that. I love that clip that we're about to look at where he goes to the tight end and then he goes to the running back.
It's
very
so
much
good.
Just like, get out of my way. Get out of my way.
So here is courtesy of PFF. You have evaluating edge rushers against double teams and chips. And you can see Bosa's right at the center of the screen right there. And Khalil Mack is a little bit behind him. I was kind of surprised to see, that when we're talking about that, that type of work. And that's what we're going to see in the film here, because he actually faces a double team, but it's more of a tight end. And right here it is. All right. So it's more of a tight end and running back combination, but this is not the only type of double teams he saw. You see him beat the tight end to the inside. Very good hand usage. Here comes a running back across and then just get out of my way. What are you doing? What are you doing? And that's the thing. He's still the violent player that he always was. But you see him bring the quarterback down. This shocked me, the ability to beat double teams. He's very good at that. He understands where the chips are coming from, whether it's a tight end or running back, and he's good at avoiding it or just damn right running through the guy to make the sack.
Yeah, and I think that comes from so much of his time in the league as being a premier edge rusher. You see those types of looks all the time, whether it's just a chip off the line and then you're getting blocked by a tackle, or in this instance where you're going from tight end to running back, sometimes you're getting like more than that. And his ability to recognize it, understand it, and then beat each guy individually here. And I like the way he does it, the transition of, okay, when you use some technique, hand usage, pop, rip through, beat the tight end, and then understanding here comes this smaller running back. It's Tajay Spears. After I've ripped through the tight end, let me just bully ball and just barrel through the running back. And then even the way he takes down Levis is kind of powerful and violent. Again, a little more some spider monkey action. Again, he puts the hands up like he's ready to just
so jerky, man. It's nuts.
He is. And it's funny just with his style and how much we've advocated for. Yeah, bend and athleticism, fluidity. And here's this dude that is, I feel like when he rushes, in my head, I feel like in his head, it's like stomp, stomp, stomp. Like it's just goes.
Yeah, that's so true. And this is where he hangs his hat, right? Speed to power. See him versus the right tackle. He just compresses that pocket, forces the quarterback to get rid of it, not able to step in the throw, and the defense gets the interception. This is where he hangs his hat, and honestly, where we're going to see him make a big difference. Compressing that pocket. You talked about the angles. Look at the hand usage and placement, driving right through the chest of that right tackle. The right tackle can't anchor. And again, it leads to the interception.
Yeah, this is the big difference between him and Von Miller. You get some, slight compression stuff from Von with that, especially last year with that long arm that he was really leaning into and using. But like you said, this is Bosa's forte, the power, that jab step with the outside left foot. And then as soon as he plants that left foot in the ground, bang, it's getting both hands right into the top of that chest plate. And then the angle of his body, he's pressing him through. And like you said, the angle, there is nowhere for Aiden O'Connell to go. He has driven the right tackle right into the drop of the quarterback. And you see that with regularity, like whether he's going through, like literally going through them, or he's created that, half man situation, and he's going through the outside shoulder or even inside, him understanding how to cause problems in a QB's drop, similar on this rep here against the Texans, going against one of the best left tackles in all of football, Laremy Tunsil.
Yeah, Laremy Tunsil. I mean, this is speed, power. And again, you see, he's not just up the field. Look at how he changes his angle to Tunsil as he's rushing towards the quarterback. You see him, again, kind of curl up and tighten it right here. Go from like that 7 technique to make it a 5 technique. And then there's that little like hezzy right there, that split leg. I said in my notes, he's kind of split legged, kind of like how Marshawn Lynch runs the ball, used to run the ball.
Great
comp. That split legged running style. He does that right there. It throws off the timing. And then you see him get right into the chest, but then watch the left hand initially, and then the right hand come through and kind of pry open the inside line to the quarterback. You see that right shoulder of Tunsil. Watch it. It just gets pushed back. He opens that inside door, and then the left hand right there to clear Tunsil and to bring down CJ Stroud.
That Marshawn Lynch running style comp is absolutely tremendous. Very well done by you on that one. And yeah, I don't have too much to add for this one other than just how smooth his transition is from bang, the strike, to prying open Tunsil on the inside and then right to the rip. Like he feels and can see how much Tunsil's gotten backed up. He realizes the inside is open. And then so it's just let me rip and flatten right through and get to Stroud. Him understanding, and maybe it kind of works too because of how split-legged he is, or that Marshawn Lynch type of style. He's able to adjust so fluidly once he goes speed to power. Like if he has to twist or turn a little bit to get the outside or keep going directly through or go inside, he has that feel and that technique, but also the power and the juice to get through guys. And again, I think this snap and the one that we just looked at are really those prototypical examples of what the Bills like in their edge rushers. They want those guys. And not only does he operate in that way, but he does it from a professional and precise approach. Vaughn, very professional approach as well. But again, more dippy, bendy, athletic, combined with rush plan and technique. Bosa, it operates in a similar mindset, but from a play style and a philosophical approach style, fits with what the Bills want from the edge. It really is, in theory, like a good match based on what they want and how he operates as that power, speed to power guy with the transitions, with the understanding and mental side of it, and then the hand usage on top of it.
What's exciting about getting a guy like Bosa is we talked about how often he was chipped, how often he was double teamed. Now that he comes to Buffalo and becomes essentially one of their best pass rusher, if not their best pure natural pass rusher, the center of attention is really going to be on him. The opposing offensive line coach during the week is going to be focused on, in critical situations, where is Bosa? How do we block him up? And that right there will help guys like Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, and others that they've brought in. I think that is what's so exciting, is that now you have Rousseau as that complementary piece that can play off of Bosa. And again, maybe Bosa's creating the havoc and creating the pressure, and Rousseau's there to clean up in many ways, like he used to early on in his career. So Bosa being the focus of opposing offensive lines, that is what excites me from a pass rush plan and strategy standpoint of adding Bosa to the remade, defensive front that they've started to this offseason.
Yeah, that's a huge selling point. The thought that keeps coming back into my head for Rousseau, and especially once he signed that extension, elite run defender. We talk about it all the time. One of the best run defending defensive linemen, not just edges, but defensive linemen in all of football. But as a rusher, he's still ascending, still going upward. I feel like he needed, and again, maybe he takes a further jump again this year because he showed improvement this past season from the year before. He's improved literally like every single year. It has been like improvement incrementally. But I wanted him to get, which is part of why I advocated for Fowler. Like I wanted him to get either a stronger running mate or someone could be the Batman to his Robin and let him be, give him someone that's an equal, another B+ guy as a rusher, or get somebody that's like an A- guy or a true edge one as a pass rusher. And I think Bosa is a move. Like at worst, he's a running mate. If he's healthy, I think he can be that true like edge one as a pass rusher off the edge. And then you start to add it, like you said, with what Ed Oliver is, and especially with how disruptive Oliver can be up the middle. Imagine if Ed Oliver is getting more one-on-ones and he's being disruptive up the middle. Now you've got Rousseau with his length and size cleaning up quarterbacks, and Bosa with his understanding of paths and angles and his ability to slip blocks, you have the opportunity to really start to create better one-on-one advantages depending on who's getting the attention and where. And then you add in the way the rest of the defensive line has been constructed and who else they've added this year in free agency. And it starts to become a group that I think the floor has risen from a pass rush standpoint for the Bills defensive line right now. And then based on how healthy Bosa is, the ceiling could be significantly raised depending on, what version of himself that he can get back to.
I like the complement of run defenders that they brought in, which we're going to talk about one next. But also, again, that pass rush ability and the respect that a guy like Bosa may command.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, it's that domino effect of and chain reaction of schematic placement and resource allocation if you are on offense. Exactly like you said, do you sit going into this week? Okay, we know on third downs, we got to account for Bosa. But do you also have to account for Groot? Are you keeping 7? Are you keeping a tight end in to chip Bosa and maybe a running back, have him chip Groot on his way out? So now you've got guys getting out into the route distribution a little later, which helps the coverage aspect. Things start to compound and snowball potentially. And that's a really exciting thing potentially for Joey Bosa in a Bills uniform for this team. Also on the defensive line as of today, Wednesday, this morning, which was, at least the Bills did it this morning. They gave us some time to kind of
a few
prepare.
hours.
Yeah, a few hours to prepare and work this through. Larry Ogunjobi, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, and then the Cincinnati Bengals, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers for the past 3 years. Defensive tackle comes to the Bills on a 1-year, I believe, $8.3 million contract. They left defensive tackle alone for a little bit. In the first couple of days, fans were clamoring, well, where's the defensive tackle? Where's the defensive tackle? They get that on this Wednesday again after addressing Bosa the night before. Now we get some reinforcements on the interior in the form of Mr. Larry Ogunjobi.
And it's still not good enough, right? It's still not good enough for the fan base because a lot of people believe that he's only a 3 tech, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that.
I was like, man, it really seems like, something innocuous tweet of like, cornerback at pick 30 seems strong. And I had so many people that were like, no, it has to be defensive tackle still. It has to be edge. And I was like, all right, okay, fair enough. Like, do you?
Oh, he's a very underrated player and has been for several years. He's played in a multitude of schemes, in a multitude of alignments when you're talking nose tackle, shade tackle, defensive tackle, 3 tech. He played on the edge in a 3-4 scheme, obviously with the Steelers more so than with the Bengals and the Browns. But I find it interesting that he comes from that division, the North there, where it's a smash mouth, traditional downhill physical matchup division. I think there's something to be said about that, especially when you talk about the teams that play in that division. Very much a utility and glue type guy. And an early down defender, but 6'3", 305 pounds, just over 32-inch arm length. And if you look at some of the stats from PFF to kind of get an idea on where he aligned last year, he was in the B gap. So between the guard and tackle, 259 snaps. He was over the tackle, 249 snaps. But if you go back to when he played in more of an even front Bills-like scheme with the Bengals and Browns, specifically back to 2019 when he had one of his best years, he was an A-gap player a lot of the time. And that was 2019. And that was 419 snaps or 415 snaps in the A-gap as a nose tackle. So that's something to keep in mind. And this is what's fun about evaluation and scouting, right? You can have a player that is can do all these certain things in one scheme, but then was on another team years ago and he was asked to do completely different things. And you kind of forget about that as a player. And when you're evaluating him, you have to kind of look, okay, what different schemes did he play in and what did they ask him to do? And so he's 30 years old right now. So he is, again, on the older side, but he's just a player that's always made plays, has always been around the ball. And again, in a multitude of alignments and defensive schemes.
Yeah, I remember when he had the good year with Cincinnati and then left to go to Pittsburgh. And that was somewhat of a big signing. It was like, how could Cincinnati lose this guy? It was a big coup for Pittsburgh. Cincinnati fans were flustered, to say the least. And then, he goes to Pittsburgh and a lot of 4 and 4-eye stuff and, playing in their 5 down front is more of like a 3-4 defensive end, like you mentioned. But you get the flashes that you see from him. I do think, with what type of player he is, I know the question was earlier, he's like, we still need a 1 tech. I think he does skew more towards the 3, but also we know how the Bills like on the interior. You're probably going to see him, at some one tech, like expect
And
that, like
I
that
like it.
role. And
I like it. You know why? Because of his explosion, that
yeah,
first step explosion and quickness. We know we talked about it with Daquan, and even when we're scouting these nose tackles, that the Bills love guys that can just insert into the gap, and that's not just the B and C gaps. We're talking the A gap too, and that's why Daquan was so good before his injury. I mean, I went back, and again, this is a few years back, but just to get an idea of the type of athlete he was. And he was in the 95th percentile in the broad jump and the 80th percentile in the vertical, which again shows that explosiveness and that quickness. And while I think again his body's changed a little bit playing in Pittsburgh, because he looks a little thicker, a little wider and stronger. But you still see, as we'll show in the film, you still see some of that first step explosiveness and quickness.
The athleticism was a big one for me that I wasn't anticipating. Like watching him, get through against the Broncos and chase Bo Nix out of the pocket and chase him down. Like, it's not just like where he rushes and Nix is like, okay, bye. And he's running guys down. Like, he's got legitimate pursuit and chase capability, which is nice on the inside, especially when, again, they're different level athletes, but when you have to play the Chiefs and Mahomes, you have to play the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and you've got even, if we want to keep it within the division, Drake May is a good athlete and a dude that can move. If you're talking Buffalo Bills and playing the Pats twice a year. So, and even now, even with the Jets, Justin Fields at quarterback. So having an athlete on the inside who is capable of kind of some explosion on the snap and within the line of scrimmage, especially in terms of talking penetration, but if he gets through, or if you run a game and he's the looper, you don't have some defensive tackle that's, he's not going to be able to chase down that QB. Like, he can kind of give him some problems a little bit, chase down and show some of that athleticism once he gets into space. It was something that I really liked and surprised me. I was just expecting to see, penetration and some good hand usage, which he showed. And then I was watching him be an athlete in close quarters in space, and it was very nice to see.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's take a look at some of the film from Ogunjobi, or Obi-Wan Kenobi is what everyone's saying, obviously, in the Discord channel. But again, first step quickness and explosiveness. This is from 2019. Again, he is the nose tackle here, right? Shade nose tackle right here against the Broncos. And again, watch that explosiveness. Look how quick his hands and his body is exploding into the center and that combination block. And again, some of the flexibility back then and ability to split that and make the tackle. You see this a bunch, and a couple of these clips I made from the nose tackle position to give you an idea. Look how quickly he gets his hands into that center. The ball snapped, and he's immediately into that center, controlling him, running him out of the area, and making the tackle. And so, some of the next few clips are him playing nose tackle in the Steelers scheme right here, and you can see he does look a little wider, a little thicker, but that quickness and explosiveness is still there, again, with the hands, with him inserting right there into the A gap. That's stuff that Daquan has done since day one.
Yeah, he's really a kind of like all gas, no brakes type of interior defender. Like, even when he's facing double teams, like he'll try to like jump over him on the snap or like split through, and sometimes it won't work out for him. But you just watch him try to, again, on the snap, like even if he's going through someone, it's quickness, it's penetrating. This is one of the ones. Yeah, just watch how he gums up the works. Like, not to use this line again, he attacks that double team like a spider monkey. Like, he's just trying to go over it or go through it. But look at the impact that it has on the center and the right guard. He gums up the works between both of them. And then you have highlighted 50 of Landon Roberts. He comes shooting through scot-free. Yep. Because why? Ogunjobi occupied the double team, and you can even see there the right guard tried to peel off and was like, oh, like he looks back. 75 Will Fries looks back at Roberts because he's supposed to come off and pick him up, but he can't because Ogunjobi's just causing chaos.
And this is something that comes up again. This is a nose tackle rep. It's a 2-eye just inside the right guard, and this is something that you see a bunch. It's his ability to win on the backside of zone runs. This one's on the front side. But again, look at the pad level. You can barely see his helmet popping up, but you see that right hand on the left side of the tackle. You see him immediately just shove him to the side, quick arm over, and go and make the tackle. He's very good with his pad level. He's very good with his hand usage. He's, again, very explosive at getting into the gap. Right here, he gets into that B gap. The run's going away from him. He blows it up to help bring down Jonathan Taylor. Here's another one. Backside tackle is trying to cut him off. Look at him use his hands to get across the face. He is just really good at getting down the line of scrimmage on the backside of zone runs by inserting, like you see here on the right tackle, inserting into that gap and then just running down the line to make the tackle.
Yeah, you'll see him, not get reached and cross face of these tackles playing in that 4 or even or in a 4-eye or even in a 4. And what I like potentially with that as well, again, it's not always a guarantee or a given, but in the Bills defense, if he's more on the interior, now he's getting to do this against guards. He's getting to do this against guys that might be a little more limited athletically as opposed to trying to do this against tackles. So now it might be an even bigger advantage with that juice and that penetration on the snap, because he's able to cut off these runs from the inside. And you would think in theory, tackles better athletes and better movers than guards, but you see it just with regularity, even when he's not set up for the most advantageous spot, his ability to, cut that off, work from the backside, not allow himself to get reached, being able to cross face the offensive lineman and just get through.
All right. So with the run stuff out of the way, what are your thoughts on him as a pass rusher? What are some notes that you brought from watching his film?
I thought he had some pocket compression capabilities mixed with majority kind of penetration aspects of his game. Again, a lot of that juice and that ability to get forward. The big thing for me was the active hands to keep himself clean and or use his active hands to work through transitioning moves. You will see him get into an offensive lineman and then, kind of almost like he's going speed to power to get the hands in, and then he'll rip through. A really good hand fighter, really good in chaining things together based on what the drop of the quarterback is. And you're seeing in a lot of these clips here, that hand usage, the ability, whether it's a rip or a swim or a quick arm over, got the club a little bit, you will see that good usage. He'll pry some guys open, lift the wrist from time to time. The big thing for me was that he showed a little compression here and there and the ability to kind of go speed to power or go for a long arm and go through a guy. But it really was the juice and the penetration and then the hand usage. And especially on the interior going up against bigger, heavier dudes, that quickness and hand usage would allow him to get positional leverage and then get into the backfield.
Yeah, I was shocked to see some of his quickness. And a lot of these, are from 2023, not just 2024. Again, because he was used a little differently last year. More of a read and react type guy, but watch how the right guard jumps him, Teller jumps him, and then just see the transition from him, win the outside half. And then again, the positional leverage with him, his quickness typically puts him in the gap or in the driver's seat as a pass rusher when it comes to rushing the quarterback. And so now he usually wins that positional leverage. Now, how does he lock it in? Right there. Look at it. You see him ripping, and then look at the run of the arc there and the strength. That's the thing. Right. He is a very strong guy, especially if we're talking from the hips down and the core down, because on the play like that, the core plays a major part. But then you're going to see some of this like hezzy rush where he kind of hesitates, waits to see what the guard or tackle is doing. Swipe. And then that swipe, that hand usage. And again, now he gets by the guard there. Here's more of a speed to power move where he's compressing the pocket. He's got that because of his strength. But I really like this rep from the Bengals game where, again, he's kind of using like a hezzy rush, but he challenges guards and tackles where he starts out here and then you'll see him kind of cross him up a little bit. And then as soon as that guy kind of power steps to kick slide inside, you get that power move and hand usage. Now you just pry it open that edge and he can go get the quarterback. So there is some hand usage and some suddenness and change of direction, but it's in that short area. Yeah. But man, there's some power. When he wants to use power, it's there.
Some of the, that move, particularly there against the Bengals, it reminded me of some of the really nice tape from Malik Collins, who just got cut by the Niners. Like you take that hard step in forward.
Just very nice. Puna forward too.
Pour one out for Puna, everybody's favorite Bill. All of a sudden, after what? Yeah. Oh man, Puna. That suddenness in the step, and then how the suddenness changes to that power move.
Yeah.
Almost like a little bit of like a hump move there. And then he finishes through by bringing the arm over. I think that was also something I wasn't expecting that type of hand usage, especially knowing off of kind of just what I had seen from him in the past, watching Steelers games and watching Steelers tape. I expected more just, I guess, pure physicality, but some athleticism and some juice to a degree. But the hand usage, I was pleasantly surprised with. And then, like you said, how he pairs that with that core strength, because it's not enough just to get by the guy. You saw it in multiple of those clips. If they get their hands on you, they can just ride you by the quarterback. It's sweet that you kind of beat them, but then you just get ridden by the QB and you got nothing. So his ability to stay on course and that core usage, when you are leaning in and you're getting torqued over and pushed over the side, but you're still able to bend in and bend through and get through those hands and get through that body, that's a huge thing again in a conference and in a league now where so many quarterbacks are athletic, and all it takes is one false step or one little change of angle or direction, and quarterbacks are sidestepping you or stepping up, and all of a sudden you've opened up the A gap or the B gap, and these mobile quarterbacks are stepping up and out like we've seen countless QBs do, Josh Allen included in that mix. Another defensive addition for the Buffalo Bills on this glorious Wednesday.
Right before going live.
Right before we went, literally like I think an hour before, like roughly, Mr. Darrick Forrest, safety from the Washington Commanders, formerly of the Cincinnati Bearcats, came out in the 2021 draft. A guy whose most significant time came in that 2022 season. I believe 17 games appeared, 11 starts, 4 interceptions that year. A nice productivity when given a bit of an opportunity in what was kind of a rotating cast at safety for the Commanders for a couple of years before they went out and paid Jeremy Chin last year and tried to settle some things down there with him and Quan Martin, who we liked coming out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Again, I remember him coming out. I remember being interested in him and some of the safeties that Cincinnati had, but hadn't really followed him much, obviously, since he's been in the league. But yeah, that 2022 season was very productive. He had 66 total tackles. He had 4 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, full-time player then. He was stacking the box, and he's a pretty versatile guy, 5'11", 206 pounds, 4'4", 340. If you look at his mock draftable spider chart, it's wide, right? It's that wide spider web where he's in the 80th, 85th, 90th percentiles for pretty much everything. Especially when you're talking explosiveness, like vertical jump, broad jump, and stuff like that.
Yeah, 95th percentile broad, 86th percentile vertical, 89th 40-yard dash, 63rd 20-yard split, 83rd 10-yard split, and 64th percentile for 3-cone drill.
Yeah, so it's a very nice chart. I'll tell you, go take a look at it. But I want to start off with, again, because the first place that we look at is like, all right, how is he used, and how you do that initially with some of the stats and advanced metrics is look at where he aligned. And if you're looking at PFF's numbers here, if you're looking at to the bottom right of the screen, 734 of his snaps over the course of his career have been as a free safety. And if you're looking at 2022, when he, again, had a lot of that production, he had 485 snaps from the free safety position, 265 from the box. So 734 as a free safety, 384 as a box safety. So it kind of lends you to think about the type of player he is. Again, good coaches and coaches all together, they're going to put players in the positions where they think they can maximize them and be successful. And so right now, you're just looking at the numbers. He seems to be more of like a post safety. And that's something that, we've talked about. If the Bills are going to not just play more man coverage, but play more single high looks to help stop the run, whether that's cover 1 or cover 3, having a post safety that has some range, that 4-4 range, you'll see it on some film, and you'll see most of the interceptions that he's gotten have come from that post safety position, as we'll show here in a minute.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. The the one against Houston, one against Philly, one against San Francisco, all from the post. That athleticism shows a bit on tape. The range shows a little bit on tape, which was nice to see. And I like that ratio there, even just from the one season that he really kind of had and saw significant action with the Commanders there in 2022. You had those 265 snaps in the box, but 485 at free safety, 75 again in the slot. That's a pretty decent ratio overall in terms of a guy who can operate close to the line of scrimmage, being as a box safety, but also a guy who can function deeper. That's nice to see, again, for a safety group that's trying to get to more of that interchangeability and then have somebody, again, who can function in the post.
Yeah, and so here are a couple clips from that season. Again, we're trying to get a better idea. We're going to have to do a deeper dive on him. Yep, it's a 1-year deal. So again, we couldn't, it was literally like 45 minutes before we went live.
It's super annoying. It happened right before.
So you see here, Commanders, you see him in the post, and I actually like this play where he's backpedaling, and then he opens up, and you'll see him go make a play over the top of A.J. Brown for the interception. Really good tracking over the shoulder there to make the interception against the Eagles.
And also good coverage from that corner down there at the bottom. Who would that corner
boy,
be?
He's a touchy prospect. A lot of Commanders fans have been in my mentions showing me how much they actually hate this guy. I don't understand that. He's not on your team anymore. Why are you still hating on him? Anyway,
I know this is from 2022, but in all 4 of Forrest's interceptions, St. Juice is in really good coverage. Like, he does a really good job on all 4 of them. It's super ironic. But yeah, I like this from Forrest. Like, he slow turns, opens up. His eyes are initially on AJ Brown as he opens. He turns. You got him there in the post, sees the throw is coming, turns, opens up, eyes get to the spot, and then he sees AJ Brown starting to track the ball. So he looks back and he starts to track the ball, and he meets him right at the catch point, makes a good play, survives the contact, survives the ground. Nice range, nice athleticism.
Here's another one, too high safety set initially. And as the ball is snapped, you kind of see him drop down. And this appears to be, it's very confusing because sometimes cover 6 looks like cover 3. Yeah. But you see him drop down right here, and he ends up trying to rob this route by Christian Kirk. So he cuts it. He cuts that route, takes him away. Trevor Lawrence gets outside the pocket, extends a play, and then tries throwing it downfield. And you're going to see him work back to the ball for the interception against the Jags.
2 things I really like about this one. The toe tap on the interception is nice. Being aware of the boundary, being able to make the catch and get the toe tap. But Christian Kirk can absolutely fly. And Forrest being able to turn, I know Kirk kind of lets up on the gas a little bit once he sees Lawrence roll out. And so he's thinking like, okay, am I not getting the ball? But Forrest being able to turn and get into his hip a little bit and run with him, and then having the wherewithal to get his eyes back to the quarterback. And that's a nice interception right there. Yeah. He makes the catch. He toe taps. I like that. I thought it was good awareness there on the boundary and a nice play initially to kind of take Kirk away.
Here's another interception from that season. Again, working over the top, post-snap. They're disguising it too high initially. You see the other safety drop down, and you see him drop right out here to the post and get deep. Now, he gets on his horse a little bit here. He gets a little help from who?
Benjamin St. Just.
That's a really nice play. He makes a lot of plays on the ball, the 6th most since he's been in the league. Benjamin.
Good job staying in phase there too.
Very good rep from St. Just, but also from the post safety here. I like the range that he shows. Again, he's not really a guy that the Bills have had at the safety position. We're talking some of the range and post safety abilities, but you see him make plays from the post in the passing game, but also in the run game. And a lot of times that is even more important because you're the only guy, you're the last line of defense, and you have to come up and make tackles on running backs that have gotten into that 3rd level. And he does that. We don't have film on that, but he does that a bunch.
That's arguably the best thing that Taylor Rapp has done in his tenure with the Bills is when they're even too high, but especially those single high structures, when guys have gotten to the 2nd and 3rd level, he shuts it down. And so it's something that's extremely important in today's football, but especially to this Bills defense. And yeah, again, good range from Forrest. I like how he initially turns and opens up. Like, he almost puts his head, you can tell that he's like trying to run hard as he opens up here. Yeah. Like, you see them spin the safeties on the snap. He gets to the post, sees that Davis Mills is open up and throwing. Yes. So he's working over to that side, has an opportunity to make a play. If Mills wants to go to 84 there, Forrest is kind of playing over the top of it, but he doesn't see that. And so then
that's why he's not on his horse immediately, right?
Exactly.
He thinks that the quarterback's this is probably cover 3. He's looking off. He's looking the safety off. Mills is looking the safety off, and he's probably going to hit the seam. So that's why he's also not on his horse. Just to add a little context to that.
Yeah, if he goes flying over the top to try and get to the vertical from Cooks, then he potentially leaves that seam a little open too much there. And, seems the vulnerability of cover 3. Yeah. So he plays that from a responsibility standpoint and then sees the trajectory of the ball and it's thrown outside, puts his head down, gets on his horse. And then again, all jokes aside, great play by St. Just for the PBU. Like, that's a really nice play to get that up there. And then again, a nice athletic play from Forrest to kind of go basket catch, gets the pinkies together a little bit, makes that catch, gets the shoulder or the knee down in bounds, shoulder down in bounds, like nice body control, nice hands. Yeah. That's, again, good range and then good athleticism on the finish. That's a nice piece.
And the final play that we have is him just, again, making a tackle. You see him near the line of scrimmage. This is what's interesting about him is like he comes down right here and then pops out. And I saw some plays, I wasn't able to cut him up, where they're showing pressure. They're showing guys at the line of scrimmage, simulated pressures, guys up at the line of scrimmage, but then having this ability to pop out. This is more of a high to low play instead of a low to high play. but you see him just get out to his zone, take away the underneath stuff. They run a screen. You see him come up and make the tackle on Nick Chubb.
Yeah, his tape, at Cincinnati coming out, I went back and it looks like I knew I had some stuff on him. His tape, when the biggest thing I remember from him was making plays from top down and making good sound tackles in space, whether it was one-on-one, whether it was constricting lanes and kind of fitting things up from a responsibility standpoint, and then finishing. Like you said, like you go from low to high, he gets to his drop, gets the top of his drop, turns back, sees little dump off there to Chubb, plants, comes forward, splits, finishes. And this is when Chubb was really rolling in 2022. This wasn't like post-injuries slowing down. Well, he's had injuries at Georgia, but this is not an easy tackle to make on a big, strong, powerful, fast running back. And he closes it down responsibly and finishes.
And the final play is another play where he kind of drops down right here and then cuts the crossing route. And then you see him read the inbreaker to the far side of the field. This is filthy. This is a filthy play. Again, more of a cover 3 type look, but it's a different type of cover 3. It's more of like a Seattle Seahawks, Legion of Boom cover 3, when this would be kind of like Chancellor. You see him, they want him to cut this right here, this crosser, but he gets his eyes all the way across the field because he knows that usually you get that follow concept, that deep dig behind the first inbreaker. He does a great job of trusting his eyes, breaking on it, and again, making a play on the ball.
Yeah, they're trying to use Lamb to pull Forrest out, so that space is vacated on the dig, and you can see him. You timed it perfectly there. Like as he's going across, his eyes are on Lamb, and his eyes just let Lamb go, and he gets eyes on the dig, and then gets eyes back to the quarterback and drives on the dig. That is a very heady, technically sound, good awareness play to understand the route combination, understanding it within relation to his responsibility in the coverage, and then going to make a play on the ball. That's the type of stuff that allows you to get interceptions and PBUs. It's an aspect that would be welcomed at the safety spot for the Bills that they necessarily didn't have last year. Those guys being able to make the plays on route concepts like that, understanding it, and then having, the mental side to process it and diagnose it, but then also the physical ability to jump and go and make a play.
And just one other transaction that happened earlier this morning around 10 o'clock, very polarizing one, much like Benjamin St. Juste, Commanders fans. Damar Hamlin is brought back on a 1-year contract. Quick thoughts on him to kind of wrap up. I don't think Bean has signed anyone since we've been live, but Hamlin's bringing Hamlin back into the safety room.
Oh, man. I hate saying anything on Damar Hamlin because either way you're wrong, but I am fine with him as a depth. I think he's built more to be a safety 3 or a depth safety. I think he's a guy who can fill in for your starters, all the things, we talked about. He's heady, he's responsible. There are limitations to him athletically, which limit his upside and limit some things you can do in the defense. I don't love the idea. I'm not saying this is what the idea is, but I don't love him as a full-time starter. But I like him as a depth guy. I think he's more than capable of filling in, starting for you. If he is a starter, ideally, I think it's more on a defense that's loaded from a talent perspective, and he's kind of the last little piece there, so to speak. But I don't think it's a horrible move. I think they still want Rapp and Bishop to be the starters. But again, if one of them get injured, or if Bishop really falters and isn't there from a mental standpoint, you could do worse than a guy who's familiar with the system, who's a smart guy, and who's responsible in coverage and fit in the run.
I'm excited about the safety position going forward. Not just because of, bringing in Forrest and bringing back Hamlin, obviously Bishop, Rapp, they're going to draft
Malachi Starks. No, just kidding.
Yeah, they're going to draft a safety. Probably, I assume not early, just because of, I think they want D-line in some capacity, but in the corner as well. So I do think that the floor of the safety room is great, but the competition is going to be, for me, it's going to be one of the competitions I'm looking forward to the most at camp, because I think there aren't many standouts, and now you're adding a guy like Forrest who has a little bit more range. He actually is very good in that quarters type system, cover 4, cover 6, but also, again, some of that cover 3 post safety stuff. I think that competition is just going to be so much fun to watch once we get out to camp. And again, I think even adding a safety in the draft isn't out of the question. And so that competition is definitely going to be fun to watch.
I completely agree. Starting from the top down, again, in theory, can Cole Bishop lock up a starting safety spot? Does Hamlin push Bishop? Does Forrest push Hamlin? Do either, like, what does that battle look like for, who comes out as safety 3 and then who comes out as safety 2? You have an opportunity for some guys to push each other. I am excited for that spot because, again, a lot of spots on this team seem kind of shored up to a degree. We'll see what happens in the draft, and then how that kind of muddies some things in a good way. But yeah, safety right now looks to be a group of, they want Bishop to be the guy, but he's not locked into that spot. And then that means safety 3 isn't locked in, which also means safety 4 kind of isn't locked in. And it's this giant competition. Yeah, I'm excited for that spot. But I'm also a defense guy and I love the secondary. So that's an easy one for me to be like,
corners and safeties are definitely the area where you live, as opposed to me. That's more of the linebackers guy, but we're on the same side of the ball most of the time. But it is, it's interesting because the guys they brought in, obviously today, but also tying into the scheme and philosophical things that appear to be showing that they may be evolving a little bit. And I think that is what is so exciting for us film junkies.
I refuse to acknowledge it too much because I don't want to get too excited.
Yeah.
Just like when they got Von Miller, I was like, man, are they going to do more athleticism and like bend at edge? And then I was like, no. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I feel like we've been clamoring for some front multiplicity and some different alignments and things that they could really do in addition to more sims and creepers and so on and so forth. Yeah, it looks like I'm not going to say what I'm going to say, but I'm intrigued and pleasantly hopeful at this point. Erik, anything on any of the moves, anything you're looking forward to, anything on your mind at all as we start to wind down here, but focus on kind of this initial wave of free agency and legal tampering?
No, I'm happy to be almost ahead now of Bean until we wrap this up and he again probably signs someone else. No, I'm overall from these transactions, Bosa, I'm lukewarm from the perspective of, hey, I thought we were going in a different direction with the edge position, but he's still very productive, especially if he is healthy, and I think they will manage his reps. Ogunjobi, I think by the end of next season, he may be one of the more underrated or undervalued guys for the Bills defense, because again, you're talking about, remember the guys they brought in with Austin Johnson, Jordan Phillips off the streets, Jefferson. Ogunjobi is a steady blue collar, underrated utility glue player at a position that we've seen so many ebbs and flows and roller coaster rides at the D tackle position. I think Ogunjobi, I think he can play nose tackle. I think he can play nose tackle on first and second downs, and I think he can play 3-tech because of his ability to get up the field. So I really like that signing. I think that is underrated signing, a guy that I'm kind of mad I didn't think about. And then again, Forrest, I think he's going to be a very competitive player at that safety position.
Yeah, I second a lot of your thoughts there. I'm a bit more than lukewarm on Bosa just because it all comes down to the health. Like if he's healthy, it's really, really exciting. If he's banged up again, right? Yeah, 100%. 1 year, 12.6 mil, could be up to 15.6. You haven't screwed yourself or mortgaged the future if he doesn't work out or if he crushes it and leaves elsewhere. I guess the only downside there, if he does crush it, it is more of a 1 year rental. And then you're sitting here next year being like, okay, like, do we have to address edge again? Like, how important was he to the room? So on and so forth. But I'm hoping that he can be healthy. And I think being on this team, given how they're constructed at edge, could help him to be healthier. And then his fit is what has me excited. Ogunjobi, I was surprised the money he got at first, the 1 year, 8.3 mil. I do like his usages and fit. I still want, and see, this is just where it comes down to pure like preference, but I also understand it's not going to happen. I do want more of like I want Roy Lopez, and I'm upset that he went to the Lions but like, I also know like, that isn't really the type of guy they gravitate towards. Like they want more juice. They want more up the field. That's why and like we mentioned, for as many people, you look at Ogunjobi, you see him on Steelers tape and you see his size and what's listed. And you're like, oh, okay. Like he's the backup 3-tech. He's going to see some 1-tech stuff. He's going to see some nose stuff. Like that's what the Bills brought in Austin Johnson and had him slim down essentially. And him and Carter were both doing 1-tech and 3-tech stuff. So that is what they want on the interior. They are not prioritizing size and space eaters. Ideally, if you can anchor and handle double teams, which I have some questions about that stuff with Ogunjobi, but
definitely. There's no doubt that's one of his weaknesses. And again, zone runs, he's fantastic.
Yes.
But the double team stuff, they can displace him and they can get up under his pads. There's no doubt.
I think he's better versus like doubles and better with displacement than Johnson or Carter were last year. But yeah, to your point, like I do still think it's a concern, which is it's not a concern with Roy Lopez. But again, that's not the type of guy like they want. And so I'm interested to see kind of what else they do on the interior after this. Are they looking at an interior four of Ed, Daquan, Ogunjobi, Carter? Or are they still looking to bring someone else in? Is Carter the odd man out? Is it 5 on the interior on game day? And what does the rotation look like? I think there's some interesting questions that you could start to ask on the interior based on how much money they gave Ogunjobi and based on his skill set and how he fits in and where he can dip. But again, I think it goes back to, for as much as people want, get, Tavondre Sweat or get, Walker from Kentucky, or they love Alfred Collins, or they like Talik Williams. They want dudes at quote unquote one tech that can essentially still play like threes. They got to get upfield. You got to get penetration. Like that's what they value more than they value the juice upfield and penetration more than they do like stoutness. And that's just what they are in the interior.
That's no doubt. That's why Ogunjobi's ability to, again, get into that gap, that A gap, that B gap initially, and like that Colts rep, yes, he's getting high point. He's going over the top and they're getting under him, but he's still occupied because of that quickness more so than the anchor. And again, much like tackling, and there are different ways to, or much like beating a block for a linebacker, right? Sometimes you're a stack and shed guy. Sometimes you just elude or evade the block. D tackles are the same way when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And yeah, that's why I kind of use like he's all gas, no brakes. Like he might get displaced or someone's getting under him and blowing him up, or he's blowing up the double and he's splitting it immediately on the snap. And you're like, whoa, like what just happened there? And yeah, I'm interested in, we talked about Forrest. I'm interested to see what happens with that safety spot. And who knows, maybe we'll get some more moves in the coming weeks. But either way, we're starting to get more of that picture starting to come together from a completeness standpoint, or completed standpoint, I should say. The draft is like 7 weeks away, so it starts to kind of put some pieces into place there, which is a fun time for us here on the show. We hope you folks enjoyed this episode of the Cover One Film Room. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, get at us on Twitter. You can find Erik running the Cover One handle at Cover and the number 1, so at Cover One. You can also find his individual account at Erik J. Turner. You can also check out the Film Room account at
too many accounts. Thanks for highlighting that. There's just too many to take care of.
The Film Room account is at Cover One Film Room. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at pro__ant. I might as well just read like everybody from the brand, like all their handles at this point, and that's that. Feel free to get at us on Twitter. Feel free to get at us here in the comments here on YouTube. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything, let us know. All of our insiders and folks in the Discord, you already know where to find us there on the multitude of channels that we have within that Discord. And we hope you folks enjoyed this episode. If you're watching here on YouTube, please drop a like on this video, turn on notifications for the Film Room playlist, subscribe to the Cover One channel as a whole while you are there as well. If you're listening on one of the audio platforms, please rate and review and subscribe. Whatever form or fashion your support comes in, we greatly and tremendously appreciate it. Word of mouth is also very helpful as well. That's how this brand started. So if you like this episode, if you like the Bills, if you like football, whatever have you, tell a family or friend and loved one, and we greatly appreciate it. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, for the captain of the ship, Erik Turner, this has been another episode of the Film Room. We will see you potentially later this week, and then next week after that. Godspeed, and